Hello and welcome back to Wellness with Delaney. Today I'm with Phillip Meece. He's the founder of Carnivore Bar. If you've been following me on social media, you know Carnivore Bar is one of my go-to snacks. It's amazing. It's a bar made out of regenerative beef. And if you're like, how the heck is that possible? Stay tuned because we're going to get into it. Phillip, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
So what led to the inspiration? Like, how did you end up starting a meat-based bar company?
So I was a soldier, and I basically got very, very ill, and I needed something like on the go that would be high fat and like red meat based. And so
Mhm.
as soon as I found the carnivore diet, I was like, okay, I found salvation. I found like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I can figure this out. Something I was eating is not sitting well with me. And so as an elimination diet, the carnivore diet really helped. And I felt so much better. But as soon as I got in a car or I visited family or I traveled, like I felt kind of this anxiety from leaving my kitchen and leaving the sanity and the mental health benefits for me were huge. So I was like, okay, well, I don't ever want to, be without this healing that I found on the carnivore diet. And I had this experience in the army that got me sick in the first place, where we're eating a lot of preservative laden food and antibiotics and just, terrible sleep schedule. And it was like a recipe for unhealth. And then you come back and you drink too much. And it's
Yeah.
like, this disaster metabolically. And I was like, okay, well, I can combine like the thing that got me ill and the thing that got me well. And, my obstacle became my path. And so I said, okay, well, I can do this field stable, like shelf stable meat bar. And maybe that could help other people facing the same problems I'm having.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to carnivore, like I would love to hear a little bit about how you ended up discovering carnivore and how that became the path that you decided to take for your own health.
Yeah, so it was kind of a wild story. I deployed in 2011, 2012. Um, so we were kind of drawing down at that point in Afghanistan. I know it just recently we pulled out, but like in '09, it was the surge. It was like they were trying to like send as many troops in there as we could and finish the job, whatever that means. Uh, Long story short, we're closing bases down, and so we got sent to Nowhereville bases to close them down, little outposts. And because of that, there weren't always defects. So we were eating a lot of like ready to eat foods were chock full of preservatives. It's just not very
Yeah.
thoughtful. And so that was kind of like our role is like we were anti-tank, so there aren't many Taliban tanks, exactly zero.
Yeah.
There might be some now that we left them, but at the time there were zero Afghan tanks, and so we weren't very useful. So we just did odd jobs, and that combination of that long duration and like not having a real role in the war on terror, it just kind of left us to be these leftovers that got the brunt of this what I think is a deficit in our food security. And so that kind of combined with the 12 years of like searching for what to eat is like, that really stuck out as a causal factor. Is like, okay, so something in preservatives. So I ate a lot of like green leafy vegetables and tried to eat the rainbow and tried to get as many micronutrients as possible. But that didn't work for me. So I was even trying to eat seasonally, and something in what I was eating was really killing me. I was eating lots of nuts.
Yeah.
As carnivores, we're all like, warning, warning, warning. But I hadn't been exposed to it, and then I heard Michaela's story through Joe Rogan. Jordan Peterson was on Joe Rogan telling Michaela's story, and I was like, oh wow, this might be it might be something. It's a mild autoimmune condition. So we don't really
Hmm.
treat autoimmune conditions until they're like full scale. You're already toast,
Right.
and it's like, well, you might be irritated by the foods you're eating. And I was looking at all the healthy, like whole grains, nuts, seeds, and leafy greens. And I was like, oh, shoot. I'm eating a whole lot of this unintentionally, and it might benefit removing it. So I removed it. thinking back again towards all those preservatives, and that like the ready to eat portion of this, and like something healthy without any preservatives that's incredibly perishable. Meat is like the very, very top of that list. Um, and I immediately felt way, way better. Um,
Wow.
yeah, so it was just kind of like just just falling into ditches and going, oh, okay, no, that didn't work. I mean, I originally thought like maybe it was alcohol. I was drinking a little bit of alcohol. I like reduced a lot, but I was still doing like craft beers. I was like, well, I've got a little bit of gut, but it's because of those craft beers. It's like certainly it's not the vegetables and whatever. So I had an opportunity to donate a portion of my liver to my
Wow.
cousin. So I went cold turkey, no alcohol, because I didn't want to pollute the liver that I was giving a part of away. And the problems persisted.
Mm.
And so it was kind of this like, dominoes one by one by one. It's like, okay, so it's not the alcohol. Okay, it might be the green leafy vegetables. It's like, that seems sketchy. Why would that be bothering me? But then I took it out and lost 40 pounds, and my
Wow.
mental health improved better than it had been in a decade. So I was like, okay, well, this is it. And then that led me into wanting to make the bar.
That's amazing. And I think this is what, what we've been getting into also is like I feel like it's so hard for people to be healthy when all these things that might be causing inflammation or gut distress are the things that are marketed as the most healthy, right? And
Exactly.
I really feel for people, and that's a huge reason why I like to have these conversations because it's like, okay, people might not all listen to this and go carnivore. Like I'm not personally fully carnivore. I'm animal based, but like I like to make decisions based on the information in front of me and based on like, okay, well, what are my goals? Like what am I feeling, right? And I think if people are constantly feeling bad and they're told eat more salads, eat more leafy vegetables, eat more raw vegetables, eat more nuts and seeds, and it's like then they might be like actually having a reaction to all the toxins in those plants, but they don't actually have the chance to realize that because there's not always the information available. And that's where I think these conversations are so, so important.
Exactly. And you hit one of the highlight words is raw.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like I was intentionally going as raw as possible, not cooking any of the vegetable matter. It's like these these vegetables and nuts and seeds and even beans, legumes, especially grains, would have all been sprouted, soaked, cooked. I mean, if you've ever had your grandparents cook you vegetables, they're like absolutely cooked to oblivion,
Yeah.
and then mixed in with butter, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, mom, like you've ruined all the micronutrients. It's like, but why did they cook them that way? And
Yeah.
why do they process them so like it's processed, but it's like they pulverize all the anti-nutrients in it and they make it as bioavailable as plant matter can become. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think just understanding the lens of bioavailability and understand the mechanics of like these phytochemicals that are defense mechanisms for smaller predation. So like
Yeah.
bugs and insects and stuff. Like the two ones that like really jump out at you are like caffeine and nicotine.
Right.
Humans have these substances and like, oh wow, this is kind of fun. We're feeling kind of razzed, but it's a dose dependent poison for something this small. It's a
Wow.
neurotoxin. So the nicotine, for instance, especially, is like causing seizures in the animals that prey on tobacco plants. And so it's
Wow.
these defense chemicals are there in plants to prevent predation. And so you take an ancestral culture like sprouting, and it removes like 70 to 90% of all the anti-nutrients. And you're like, oh wow. You look at these crazy Western A price people and you're like, they're doing all these like ferments and sprouts and these processes with vinegar that like different acids and bases and like all this chemistry is like or enigmatizing the corn in tortillas, which makes vitamin B1 available. If you don't do nicotizing, then the tortillas are deadly and deficient
Wow.
in B vitamins. And so it's like, wow, so they're going to all this extra effort to make plants more completely nutritious. Like, so you can eat plants, but like throwing out all these traditions, these safety mechanisms might be a bad idea.
Yeah, certainly. And I think it's really important to look back to what our ancestors did. There's so much intuition there. And I don't know about you, but like anytime back when I used to eat a ton of like grain bowls and salad bowls and kale and all this stuff, like I had never been more bloated. And I actually weighed, when I was vegan years ago, like I weighed the least that I've ever weighed. Yet I was always so bloated. Oh my gosh. I'm like, that's not normal. Like it's not normal to eat and have your stomach like swell up with gas
Yeah.
because the food is having such like a toxic reaction in your gut. And that's what I think one of the craziest things for me is like eating more sprouted fermented foods, but also just like eating mostly a meat-based diet is the fact that I don't bloat anymore. Like I can be full without looking 6 months pregnant every time I eat a meal, and like realizing that you don't have to feel horrible when you eat, which I always thought like, oh, you just bloat because you're full. I'm like, no, that's actually, it's common, it's not normal. So, okay, I have
Yeah.
a question for you. When it comes to Carnivore Bar, so you're like
Mhm.
meat and tallow based, right? How do you make it shelf stable?
So it's based off ancestral tradition. So it's when I was looking at like combining like the thing that got me sick to the thing that I needed, um, hyper focused on preservatives. It's
Mm-hmm.
like I don't think, from my understanding, they don't stop working just because you ingest them. Like
Mm-hmm.
with normal food, your stomach acid transforms it. Like for example, protein. You have pepsin. So you have like an enzyme that's activated by the low pH of your stomach acid. It breaks down the amino acids into bioavailable components. So you're starting from whole protein, you're breaking it down into bioavailable amino acids, then it absorbs in your small intestine, and you're good to go. So when it comes to a preservative, it's a foreign material that prevents microbial breakdown. Sometimes your acid will deactivate it, sometimes it won't. Oftentimes, the better the preservative, meaning the more it works against microbial action, the more it's not digestible, like
Mm,
ever. It comes out the same way it goes in. So none of
mm,
the nutrition in it is ever unlocked because
right.
when you are eating something, you have, chewing, you're breaking it up, mastication, then it goes to your stomach. You have chyme, you have the stomach acid, then it gets neutralized with the bile salts from your gallbladder from that your liver is making, and then that creates chyme, and that chyme is supposed to be bioavailable, and then you have fermentation that occurs in your microbiome that further breaks it down. You should not have a ton of microorganisms in your small intestine. Mostly it's your large intestine when you reabsorb the water, but a whole different cascade of things are happening, and we don't know exactly which species we want and which concentrations because there are trillions of different variations, and we haven't quite figured that out. There are lots of people who are healthy who have very different microbiomes, and there are lots of people
Mhm.
who are ill who have very different microbiomes. There are trends, but there's no clear picture as far as science is concerned. And so with digestion, it's like if you're putting a preservative that they cannot break down inside you, um, you're basically rolling the dice of whether or not you'll be able to use that nutrient at all. And so every meat processing shelf stability thing I could see was using hermectants, which is like a salt that draws all the moisture out, or it was using like spice blends or different kinds of herbs to be like an ancestral preservative. And I was like, I'm not sure I want to risk it. It's like anything that is antimicrobial, um, I run that same risk that I use with modern chemicals that I now fully distrust. So I found the Native American tradition that existed far, far older than the Western tradition. Like they would have developed in Europe for like sausages and salami and ferments with the bacteria on the outside in the mold, beneficial mold that they could like peel off at the end. It would prevent any other microbes that could be dangerous to our health from going on. But you're getting residue of microbes. It's like if you if you can tolerate that, then that's great. But if you can't, if you're starting to be allergic or autoimmune to everything, that's another risk. And so for poor carnivores or animal-based people, we're often beset with something that, a terrible health experience that drove us here. So the Native American tradition didn't have any of those traditions. What they did is they took strips of just meat, dried over a fire with smoke. And so they're not adding anything. Then they take that dried meat, it's super, super dry, super, super lean, and then they crush it with a mortar and pestle. They grind it to almost dust so it could like blow away. It's that fine. And then they take that and they render animal fat. So this would have been primarily bison in the Great Plains area. So they take that bison fat and they take that very, very dried protein and they mix it together. With the rendered fat, they strained out all the collagen, all the connective tissue, anything that might have water in it, and they've cooked that tallow a good bit. So there's very little moisture in the tallow. And so they've gotten a really, really isolated fat that's clean and just the lipids, and they got a really isolated protein. And they mix that together, and they have this ultra dry, like kind of meat paste. Not the most appetizing texture, but there's absolutely like no preservatives and no water. And so what they do is they put that in rawhide bags called parfleche. And the parfleche, they'd basically be making pemmican, which is Native American for travel grease. So they have this paste or this travel grease, they put it in rawhide bags, then they pour tallow on top of that rawhide bag, and they'd crack it when they were ready to use it. And so they would take a sacrificial layer of tallow that had hardened, and it might have a little bit of mold on it or oxidation. It's suboptimal. And so they discard that, and they have the pristine pemmican inside, the meat and the fat, 80% calories from fat because it's 50-50. Energy density of fat is much higher than energy density of protein. So when you mix it by weight 50%, then you get this perfect keto macros, and it has not been in contact with oxygen and has not been in contact with moisture. So it's good for decades. And so no preservatives, that's what I was looking for. I was like, well, obviously I can't sell it in rawhide leather and make it in my backyard, but that's why I created this. It's modern and convenient. It's in a Mylar sheath. And so it's a metallized film. There's almost no penetration. It would take many, many hundreds of years for enough oxygen to get through it. And almost no moisture gets through it at all.
Wow. Okay, I'm so glad I asked that because that was actually the coolest story. And I've been following you guys for a while, and I actually never knew that whole process and where it came from. That's extremely fascinating. And I love how it feels kind of like an homage to ancestral ways. And I think that's also really beautiful, like in the theme of just going backwards and listening to our ancestors and seeing what they did, like listening to that ancient intuition. What a cool way to honor tradition and honor the past and how things were done. I think that's amazing. So then with your bar, okay, so let's say people are going to choose between, you have a $16 bar, right? Which is full of like great meat and tallow, and some of them even have pluck seasoning, which I think is so fun. And then you have maybe like a $2 or $3 protein bar at the store. People might be looking at the macros and being like, okay, well, maybe they both have 20 grams of protein, right? So why is it like beneficial to spend $16 on this bar when you can spend $3 on a grocery store bar?
Well, here I'm going to set the stage a little bit to frame the argument.
I'm
So
ready.
it's $16 a bar if you buy a la carte, a single bar by itself. So I have to pay for like shipping for this little thing to go, and like too much force and you break it. So I have to put it in a box. I have to support it. So, if you're on the shelf, you already are in a temperature controlled environment, and it's easy to go. So what we do is we incentivize our long-term fans. So affiliates like yourself, if people use a code, they get 10% off. And then if you buy a 24 pack, which is our best deal, you get a further % off. So those stack with a subscription code. So you get a bulk discount, you get an affiliate discount, and you get a subscription discount. So if
Dang.
you're using all of those, the actual price per bar is $10 a bar, which is what I intended for our long-term fans who want to support the community and want to support the affiliates. So why would you spend $10 on a meal replacement instead of a protein bar, cheap Walmart protein bar? And my answer is because there's more value in the carnivore bar than there is the cheap protein bar. So the protein is not, all protein is not made equal. You know, when you're talking bioavailability, you're talking digestibility, like again, the preservative conversation of like what actually goes in your body versus what goes through your body. You know, when you're talking about animal protein, almost all of that is bioavailable. Like the acid in your stomach can easily break down animal-based protein. If you are using a plant-based protein, it has to be converted. You know, you are more like an animal than you are a plant. And I know that sounds overly simplistic, but if you go down to the cellular level, the forms of the vitamins in the animal, like take vitamin A, for instance, retinol. So retinol is already in its bioavailable form. So if you eat retinol, you can absorb retinol. It won't be a perfect percentage, but it will be a much higher percentage than, say, carrots or beta carotene. But the nutritional label won't tell you that. So it'll just say vitamin A, or it'll just say whatever the government has deemed appropriate. But your physiology doesn't know that there's a government. Like the government and your biology are not connected. So there's no obligation for your biology to respect, man-made institutions and understandings. Like, for instance, a calorie. You know, it's like these are things that we use to help understand or wrap around or compare different foods. But if you're comparing plant-based like protein, often what you're getting is nitrogen. So any kind of measurement is only as good as the ruler that measures it. And if you're trying to assess how much bioavailable amino acids are in a food, nitrogen is a poor substitute. Obviously, amino acids, well, maybe not obviously, but I should say amino acids are nitrogen based. So if you're looking for nitrogen, you would say, well, I will detect if there's any amino acids there. Right, yes, but there's noise to that signal. And the noise to the signal is nitrogen itself. So say I have like 10 grams of protein, but I have 1 gram of actual protein and 9 grams of just base nitrogen. It still reads as 10. So on the label, they're not lying, but it is misleading. And so if it's not bioavailable, it really gives you a question of like, is that helpful? And then when you come to fat, you're going to have the same kind of thing. It's like, well, it has like 7 grams of fat. You know, our bar has 35 grams of fat. And the fat that this is grass-fed, grass-finished, regenerative raised, animal welfare created tallow. So it's this ancestral fat that we've been having for millions of years since before we were human. And if you have the protein bar, the like 7 grams of fat, not really enough to send a satiation signal, it's seed oils. So in order to make it shelf stable, they want to keep those costs as low as possible. You buy that protein bar for $1. So they're only going to put 10 cents worth of product in it,
Right.
of value in that bar. But for me as a carnivore, I'm obligated to put the highest quality meat possible. So our margins are paper thin because I'm putting extremely high quality and I'm charging a high price. So this is my margin. But what they're doing is they're putting the lowest bottom quality possible that won't kill you immediately. And they're charging a price like this. And so the difference between their price and their quality is much, much higher. And that's what makes them profitable.
Right.
So they can have a 90% margin on a $1 protein bar because they've only put that 10 cents worth of value in that seed oil and that commodity grain. Imagine you're getting like a semi truck full of grain. right? So you're paying thousands of dollars, but per bar, it's actually, 2 cents.
Right. Yeah.
So go ahead.
I would say, and I always think of it, it's not even the same, like, I always think of Carnivore Bar how it can also be like a meal replacement depending on
Yeah.
your body. Like for me, maybe 1.5 would be literally a full meal. For someone else, maybe two. But how many times do we go out and spend $30 on an entree, right? And by
And
that,
throw away
you
the
know,
sides.
yeah, by that math too, $15 is a meal. Or like how many times do people go through the Starbucks drive-through and get a 20-ounce coffee and a pastry and it's the same price? So I always think like people will be like, man, that's so expensive for something healthy. But if you actually look at your spending habits around food, I think you'll find that you spend much more on much less nutritionally.
Yeah, it just depends on what you want out of your food. If you want entertainment, like you can go down to the gas station and find entertainment. You buy $30 worth of entertainment, like your mouth will be having a bliss experience.
Yeah.
But your body is going to have a comeuppance later that day. You're going to have a sugar crash and you're going to feel kind of rotten and sluggish the whole next day or week, depending on how bad you cheat. It's like ultimately I wanted to feel better. That was the one thing that I felt like I could change if I ever had to go back to Afghanistan. It's like, I can't change the mission, I can't change the country, I can't like change who the better leadership. It's like it is what it is. But what I can do is I can make a tool so that I don't have to be hungry like I was doing nothing but cigarettes, nicotine, and sugar.
Right.
Like those aren't food groups.
Right. It's yeah, no, it's pretty wild. I always think it's pretty crazy what the government feeds people. I mean, you look at the military, you look at schools, prisons, you look at hospitals even. I think what they feed people in hospitals is also criminal. But it is crazy that when the government's involved or like big corporations are involved, like the nutrition just gets absolutely outrageous. So having something that you can like take on the go and you can have with you, I think is really, really smart.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing big business.
Yeah.
So in order to save the taxpayers' money, they have to go cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. So
Mhm.
they are going for the cheapest option to be good stewards of their money. Not taking seriously the responsibility of the people who they're serving that food
Mhm.
and like meeting those needs well. They're
Yeah.
trying to take care of the taxpayer, but they're not really taking care of the taxpayer if they're sacrificing our future to do it.
Yeah. When I think about how much money is wasted when it comes to spending tax dollars, and I'm like, I would much rather so much less money go to all these frivolous causes, or, how many, this is going to get me in so much trouble, but how many of our tax dollars are going to people who are not even US citizens when we can't even help our own, you know?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest shame is veterans. I got
Mhm.
sick, working for the government.
Yep.
And how many people are in the same boat in prisons on either side of the fence? The people working prisons, the person in prison. It's
Mhm.
like or hospitals. Same patients and doctors. One of the things that I saw when I came back, when I made the decision to like actually start and go for it on the Carnivore Bar, as I was in an ER doing paramedic hours. So, the Army only springs for basic, like EMT basic, even though we have paramedic skills as a combat medic. So I was like, well, if I want to practice as a medic, I don't want to not do the paramedicine that I learned because that was
Right.
all the really cool stuff. Like the oral glucose and activated charcoal is kind of like that's it for a basic medic, and you can do the bag valve mask. But you know, you could yell at someone across the street to do those things. So I thought that if I'm gonna be a medic, I should go be a paramedic. But then I was standing in the ER doing all night shift for free because that's how you do volunteer hours in the medical system is you work for free so that you
Wow.
can go make $20 an hour. And it's like, okay, I'm starving. And the little fridge they have is chock full of lunches that people brought because they know there's like nothing in the hospital to eat from their doctors and nurses who have seniority because the medic
Mhm.
is like the lowest of the low. Like I was mostly wiping beds.
Right.
And then like getting my hours like learning with the patients and like helping any way I can, trying to be useful. So being the low person on the totem pole, having absolutely no clout, um, there's no fridge space for me. There's a vending machine, and I'm looking at all the nurses and doctors. One nurse was retiring, and there was free cake and free pizza, and all of them are overweight and like trending down as far as
Right.
their health going. But they're providing for people who, all have various different like one was an alcohol patient, one was a dementia patient, another person got really inebriated and then hurt themselves and had a trauma. And so it was like, but they were all like metabolic root problems. They all like
Yeah.
weren't healthy in their diet and their lifestyle. And so when I was seeing both sides of that equation, the providers and those they were providing for all having this metabolic problem, and I was looking at this vending machine, looking at this full fridge full of things. I'm like, how do I, as a medic, stay on this diet that has given me my life back? How do I sustain myself? Because I'm not making very much money. I'm making okay money, but like this is pre-COVID. Um, and it's like, well, maybe I could do more good if I help solve this problem with having high fat, animal based protein available and shelf stable for people who might find themselves in that situation. And I thought, well, I bet there are other people who have this problem. So if I do Kickstarter, I can find out if there's other people who are interested. And thankfully, people like you and all over have found me and said, yeah, absolutely, we're all about this and let's make it happen.
Yeah, 100%. I love what you said about like talking about the providers too. I think just like the modern system is so messed up. And I know for me personally, when somebody is a medical provider and they're in much worse shape than I am and they are trying to give me advice on things that I don't necessarily agree with, I'm like, you gotta do better to make me trust you. Listen, if you're the least healthy person I'm looking at, like, it's hard for me to trust somebody with medical advice and health advice. I mean, really,
Yep.
I'm all about judge the tree by the fruit, right? And so I think that a reform is needed there for sure to start. Second of all, and I love to see the way people have really as a community kind of come around Carnivore Bar. Did you expect it to become such like an internet sensation that like all of these huge creators are partnering up with?
Um, I hoped I hoped for the best. It's been interesting because one of the things about health hacking and health journeys is that they are not linear. And
Mhm.
so you have people who are really, really relevant in the beginning who may not stay in the field. Their health may deteriorate and they may stop talking about carnivore or animal based. And so there's been a revolving door, and
Yeah.
I'm just blessed that people keep approaching the topic and approaching the brand and saying like, yeah, this is something we're in about. And I think for us, rotating to the animal based community has been a big part of that. I mean, the bar that held up was the honey salted.
Yeah.
Adding honey was a big like, I
Big
don't know if I want to do
controversy.
this because people who have carb addiction, it could be a real stumbling block for them. And so you don't want to be a stumbling block for people who are in this fragile health space. But at the
Mhm.
same time, you also want to be inclusive to people who, are eating more nose to tail, like you said with the pluck, or who want a little bit more carbohydrate, who are more metabolically flexible. And so pivoting to what people are asking for without like trying to sabotage others, it's a careful balancing act. And so
Yeah.
we've been really careful with how many carbs we add and what kind of sweet things we add them from. Like, we could add stevia to it,
Thank
but
goodness you don't.
a lot of people either react to stevia or they're concerned from a fertility point of view.
Mhm.
They don't like that ancestrally, like hunter gatherers have used stevia as a fertility suppressant, as
Yep.
birth control. And so it's like, well, it's there for sweetness, but it might be doing other things. We want to keep this pretty stone age. So when
Yeah.
we added a sweetener, we added raw honey. We didn't even cook it. So we're minimally doing everything. Everything is mechanical, it's pulverized, it's rendered gently so that we don't burn off all the fat soluble vitamins. We're doing everything very, very carefully. So I didn't want to add any kind of chemical junk that could ruin that kind of vibe.
Yeah. Well, and I'm so glad you mentioned that. I'm so glad that you guys don't do stevia because for me, that would have been a deal breaker personally. Like, and granted, I'm pretty metabolically flexible. I also don't struggle with carb addiction. So I can do animal based pretty easily. But with stevia, it's something I actually gave up a while ago because, it's in every protein powder and flavored
Hmm.
supplement and all these different things. It's in everything. And I even see a lot of like carnivores who will use stevia. And I'm like, hey, do what you're going to do. I don't care. But a lot of people don't realize the effect it has on progesterone specifically.
Exactly.
And we're seeing really heightened rates of PCOS, of unexplained quotations, unexplained infertility. We're seeing a lot of we're seeing a lot of people having miscarriages, all these things. And I'm like, you guys, progesterone is such an important hormone. And it goes back to plants have toxins, right?
Hmm.
I personally cannot in good conscience consume all these health products that have something that depletes progesterone when we're already seeing progesterone at all-time lows in society. It's madness to me. And I think it's one of those things where people like saw it and they're like, oh, it's this 0-calorie sweetener and it's natural, great. And then all of a sudden exploded, right? And got way like used out of proportion versus like how it was ancestrally used, which was literally
Yeah.
birth control.
Yeah, they fixate on one metric. And
Hmm.
I think that one thing that your brand does really well is you explore.
Yeah.
You
Thank you.
explore all these different vectors. I was just checking out your alarm clock, which looks so cool.
I love it. Oh
The
my gosh.
rise. Yeah, it's like the Himalayan salt. It glows, but it's amber and it's the right wavelength for your eyes. It's like, that's wonderful. It's like if your diet's on point, but you're not sleeping, like you're
Like,
going to
what's up with
crash out.
that? Yeah.
So it's really holistic. And so, as a food manufacturer, from a carnivore perspective, for the longest time I was zero carb. Now I'm super super low carb. Like I try to keep it under 10 grams a day.
Mhm.
But I don't go crazy. It's just one of those things where everyone's at a different place.
Mhm.
Under 10 grams of carbs is like insane keto, but what it is coming from a zero carb place and then not like hating myself if I have, a honey bar or something like
Right.
that. 7 grams of carbs. It's like, okay, if I have one, that's fine. But for me, like if I keep it under 20 or 30, I pretty much get most of the benefit of zero carb.
Yeah.
Other people need to be more strict, and a lot more people are being pretty inclusive. But I was thinking about that ratio of 35 grams carbs, 7 grams, or 35 grams fat. Excuse me, 7 grams carbs. So it's triple fat. So it's more satiating than it
Mhm.
is provoking. And if it's
Mhm.
fructose based, it's not going to be insulinogenic. So the fructose in the honey is hard on your liver, but in small doses, I think your liver can handle a lot. Just like, alcohol that we're all familiar with. It's like you can handle a little, you can't handle a lot.
Right.
Tylenol, you can handle a little, you can't handle a lot. It's a common way that people kill themselves is too
Mhm.
much Tylenol. It's like, I think, we shouldn't get too far into current events, but, people being cavalier and thoughtless and not considering the effects of what they're doing and their current metabolic state are really shooting themselves in the foot because biochemistry is really really complex and we do
Yeah.
not understand it all yet.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are under the impression that just because something's available and over the counter it's without like that means it's without consequence.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely not true. I really think people should think about everything they put in their body, whether it's what you're putting on your skin, what you're consuming, what you're taking like as a medication or a supplement. We really need to be more cautious because we you get one body, right?
Yeah.
Like don't just blindly put a bunch of chemicals and things in it. Okay, quick question. So with your diet and how you're like kind of doing very, very low carb, mostly carnivore, do you eat the new apple pie bars?
Occasionally. Occasionally I do, but to me, that little bit of fiber is too much.
Mm.
It's suboptimal. That's a suboptimal day if I've had an apple pie bar, and I'm like incentivized to not say that. I'm incentivized to like change my tune, make a quick buck, but everyone's in a different place,
Oh, I
and
love the apple pie bar.
I know a lot of people do.
It's so good.
During our conference this weekend in Hack Your Health, like we did a vote your favorite flavor, and the apple pie just like crushed it all
It's
the way
so
to the bottom with tally marks so that people were voting. We had them
yeah.
put little stickers, and everything else was way up at the top. There's honey salted, zesty garlic, and honey barbecue, and apple pie was like full, like a
Yeah,
full column. And it's like, well, if that's where people are, if they aren't zero carb carnivores, if they are animal based curious, I don't want to create something so Spartan that they're turned off the carnivore way of life and they don't have any options for on the go. It's like, because a 35-gram fat bar with 12 grams carbs is way better than anything you could find at a gas station. And if it's
right.
regenerative agriculture, like I shouldn't be such a stick in the mud that I, commit business suicide. It's like, I never want to sell out, but I want to be reasonable and support the community and where it's at.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the thing is, like, you're still using the highest quality ingredients, and, yeah, as someone who's animal-based, I appreciate it a lot, and, I mean, it was originally, like, a limited edition flavor, right? And then it got so
Mhm.
popular that you guys made it a staple flavor. That's really cool.
Yep, it's now permanent. It has the inverted colors. So
Love it.
the check marks mean these bars got broken. So no mind the check marks. But these are just for my office. It's been a labor of love, just trying to figure out like what makes a business work and what makes people's health journey work.
Right.
And if they have options, I think convenience is one of those things where not everyone understands like the value of convenience. But if you are struggling with binge eating, snacking, um, the temptation to go off the diet, I think small little breaks, small compromises instead of huge compromises can make a big difference so that like for example, like you were saying, avoid stevia or, avoid gluten. If you
Mhm.
have a crappy food at a gas station that has gluten in it and like you react to gluten, you have it anyway, it's like, you know that's too far. That's not a
Mhm.
compromise that you should do if you react to it. Same
Yeah.
with like cheese whiz, as no gluten at all, but it has a meat cheese, and
Mhm.
it looks tempting, but it has BHT and BHA. It has cancer causing preservatives in it. So it's
Yeah.
like it's no carb, it's cheese and meat, but it's not good cheese and meat. And so
Right.
I want to try to provide an option. I say that having eaten a bunch of them, like, and I realized what was in it, and I was like,
Mhm. Well, that's the thing too. I think a lot of people think that like, and maybe you can speak on this, but something I see because keto has gotten so popular, like it's interesting. I think it was really popular for a while, like maybe a decade ago. And then I kind of went away with the plant-based movement and then it's back with a vengeance, at least what I'm seeing just trend wise and social media
yeah,
wise. I think because keto is so popular and you tend to run this risk whenever a certain trend becomes popular, people are jumping on it and thinking, well, as long as something doesn't have carbs, it's healthy, right? Like they'll eat
exactly.
anything as long as it doesn't have carbs, including all those preservatives. Do you see like as somebody who promotes like a ketogenic lifestyle, but like more of an ancestral, regenerative, do you see kind of a concern there with how popular it's gotten and how kind of convoluted the message is?
Well, I mean, that's why if you've seen our Instagram, that's why we try to like boost a bunch of ideas so that are promoting of critical thinking, a promoting of evolution and ancestral. So there's two different ways to look at it depending on your faith background. There's the evolutionary background of just the science, like you evolved to eat this, and
Mhm.
then there's the faith based kind of analysis of like, this is an unbroken lineage. You are like you're the success on success on success of, you know, a lot of monotheistic religions are based off of uh, pastoralists,
Yeah.
animal husbandry. So like when you broke into agriculture in the dawn of agriculture about 12,000 years ago, and the modern era began. You know, so history begins 12,000 years ago, even though the modern humans were 300,000 years old, intact, just as we are today. So we didn't do anything for the first like 290,000 years or so, which, you know, has its own questions to that. But that's how long we've been modern humans with brains like this. And so the last 12,000 years definitely seems like climate has changed, and that we went from hunting fatty megafauna that
Hmm.
were abundant and all over the place on the earth, like the mammoth, until all of a sudden now we have to grow crops to survive. And the people who did the best also cultivated animals. And
Hmm.
so they had a strong base of fatty red meat and fatty ruminant meat that could take useless grass and turn it into something that would be metabolically advantageous for human survival. And so I think both of those stories intersect. For me, I don't have a conflict with the two different interpretations. For me, they intersect
Hmm.
at reality. And that reality for me is mostly meat, whole foods. And so, whatever diet you want to be on that feels best for you, that promotes human flourishing, I think is the one you should do. Human flourishing is what we're after, not a religious perspective. You know, turning food into a religion.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's crazy. You should flourish. You should do what your body is telling you that works for you.
Yeah. Well, I think I like that too because I do think sometimes with anything, whether it's biohacking movement, the carnivore movement, the kind of like Paul Saladino style, like all these different movements, it becomes almost like doing it for the sake of that movement to be a part of it, and it becomes a religion in a sense versus it being like, no, this isn't a means to an end. The goal is to feel amazing. The
Yeah,
goal is to like look and feel your best for as long as possible. It's these are the means to get there, but I think one thing with the internet creating, and I don't know, I've seen this a little bit with like some of the carnivore influencers that I am in network with and communicate with a lot. Is like when they do something different, like maybe they do go animal based, maybe they do eat a carb one day or eat a piece of fruit or whatever. And it's like the audience comes at them with the pitchforks. And I'm like, you guys are so religious about this. Ultimately, do what works for you. If you are somebody that is like carb addicted, or you just for whatever reason want to go, like I think for people with autoimmune issues, like full carnivore is great, right? And I think for anyone it can be great, but if it's just not what you want to do, whatever. Like, does it really matter? Ultimately, if we're all kind of on that pursuit of truth and all on that pursuit of health and well-being and longevity, why are we tearing each other down? And I think that can be an issue when any movement becomes like that kind of religion. I don't know if you see
yeah.
that at all.
No, I do. I was raised in a very religious household. I was a missionary kid, so I was raised in Mongolia,
Oh wow.
which, side note, is a high-fat, animal-based culture. Genghis Khan, uh, the Mongols love fatty red meat, and in the '90s when I was there, like the zeitgeist was the complete opposite, and so everyone was a bit horrified by how much fat everyone ate,
Right.
including like whole giant pieces of fat. The tail
Wow.
of the sheep was just 100% fat, giant mound as big as your head. The guests of honor got that. And so, you know, of course, you don't know their health outcomes. They're, you know, in a bad way after the Soviet Union fell. And so there's malnutrition and stuff. And so, you know, the message gets kind of convoluted of like, well, what's really healthy? They don't seem to be doing so hot. You know, should we take their opinion? And it's so ironic that I've come full circle and now doing that. But I say all that to say that, you know, when you're in a religious community, there's a, you know, the virtuous signal,
Mhm.
and is really important not to create one of the societal sins.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be, you may, obviously everyone sins, even in a religious context, even though people pretend they don't, you mess up, you make mistakes. But
Right.
when it comes to being seen sinning, like that's a huge social anxiety. And so if you take that same philosophy that should be appropriate for morality and morality only, and you apply it to food, it's like someone hands you a tiny bit of banana and they're like, are you a sinner? Did you lose your carnivore card? If you've been
Yeah.
carnivore for 10 years, are you no longer a carnivore because you had a bite of banana and you ate it without thinking? It's like, I don't know if that's super helpful. It's like, you should be accountable to yourself.
Mhm.
You know, maybe a more realistic example is someone hands you a birthday cake.
Yeah.
Like, don't worry about what the internet thinks. Worry about what you think tomorrow morning.
Yep.
Like, are you going to enjoy this?
Yeah.
Not only in the moment, but also tomorrow. If the
Exactly.
answer is no, maybe you owe it only to yourself, not to God or anybody else, but you owe it to
Mhm.
yourself to listen to your body, to not do that to yourself. But
Yeah.
I think that self focus is really healthy when it comes to food. You should nourish your body. If your body is not doing well on what somebody that your neighbor is doing well on, don't worry about what your neighbor is doing. Just listen to what your body is telling you.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful advice because ultimately, like, that can only really lead people to better health. And I think a lot of people, because of these mentalities in different communities, can feel stuck. Like, I know even for me, because when I was a vegan, I was like a vegan content creator. I was part of a vegan company. Like, I went around and did like vegan educational panels on like going plant-based and all these things, right? And I think because of that, I stayed vegan a lot longer than I actually wanted to. Because I remember even bringing up to people I was working with, like, "Hey, like, what if I ate meat one time?" And it was like a big, like, "You can't do that," you know?
Yeah.
But also because I felt accountable to my audience on social media, I felt
Mhm.
like I would be admitting failure, and I think because of that fear, I didn't listen to my body's biological desires as fast as I could have. And so I think when we also see these creators who are kind of just figuring it out, who are maybe carnivore, and then one day they eat a piece of apple or something, there's
Yeah.
also a level of like, there is a lot of courage required to share those things when you're in such a tight knit community that can be
Yep.
very legalistic. It takes actually a lot of courage to be honest. And I would much rather see honest creators than people who are probably doing the exact same thing, but in privacy. And then promoting something that they're not actually doing because they're afraid of how people are going to react. So I think when we can approach people with that grace and that appreciation for honesty, then maybe we can create, like, I just really wanna see the animal-based movement, I like, be just really positive, and I think in a lot of ways it is, but, there's always the fear of something like a community eating itself, and
Mhm.
I think what a lot of people don't realize is some of the people that you see being perfect on the internet are actually doing all the same things in behind closed doors. They're just scared of you.
Yeah. Or worse. And so
Yeah,
it's really just, it's like there's that saying, never meet your heroes.
right.
And it's true. But at the same time, don't idolize other people.
Yeah.
If somebody has a lifestyle tip or a hack, or you find someone's story especially moving, take it for what it is. It's an anecdote that may or may not be helpful to you.
Mhm.
Um, but they're not obligated to stay in that ideal.
Yeah.
They are not an icon for you to worship. You know, they're just there on the internet sharing their story. If it's helpful, great. If you want to emulate it, great. But don't expect them to stay static. It's like we've all had different ideas on the internet, and the internet preserves them forever. It's like,
Yeah.
well, I might change my mind. you
Yeah.
know I think what you said was perfect. Give them grace.
Mhm. I think, yeah, that's just a way to strengthen community because typically the community's full of pretty based people already.
I agree.
Like, let's keep it that way. Let's keep it kind and just always like spread. I think it should always be about pursuit of truth, right? Pursuit of real truth in a world where there's so much propaganda and there is so much fake news. I mean, even I know you shared one thing on that, like, let's say we go to the grocery store and we're like trying to be healthy And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to Whole Foods and I'm going to buy organic produce, organic meat, all this stuff. And it might not actually even be organic, right? So like
Right.
we live in a world where there's just lies upon lies upon lies. And like it's great to be a truth seeker. Wait, can you actually like elaborate on this story a little bit with like the Whole Foods and the fake organic?
Sure. I mean, grass fed and grass finished is a big problem in the meat space,
Yeah.
and also country of origin. So systematically, the last 50 years, we've been making it unaffordable to raise meat in America. Fortunately, we have a bunch of cowboys who don't care that they're losing money to
Mhm.
make meat. And that's why we have meat today.
Yeah.
So this is a very tenuous situation that it's not profitable to buy meat or to raise cattle in America unless you have a very specific niche that you found a way to make it work. You can usually break even, but
Mhm.
we live in this kind of gangster world where the meat packers have control of everything. So then people who are importing meat, have this huge financial incentive because they can make more money here than they can in their country of origin, and it costs them much less than it does people here. American labor, all the rest. Just the level of interest in raising cattle is low, and then profitability is part of the reason that it's low. It's like people's sons and daughters don't want to go into the business. So the average age of the cattle rancher before the pandemic was 65. I guarantee you it's older now
Wow.
because meat is like cattle ranching is being decimated here in America.
Wow.
So even Trump just released something that they're gonna ease tariffs on some grocery items and make it easier to import more beef, because one of the things that
Mm.
caused the recent price increases, besides just calf prices being unreasonable, they can't rebuild their herd if the calf price is too high, so they can't send beef to slaughter, and a whole bunch of people liquidated 21, 22, and 23 because things got too hard and too spicy during the pandemic, and they're like, I'm not making any money anyway, why am I working for free?
Right.
I'll just sell. And so that made the price artificially low for a bit, and then now it's come up in time. So there's all this cattle from Mexico that's not being imported for the screwworms, and so that all of like about a million and a quarter, so 1.2 million, our beef got stopped from coming to the southern border. So that means like we're seeing an increase from Australia. We're seeing an increase in fraud. We're seeing an increase in a bunch of other countries, Brazil, different places. Um, but you can see like it starts to incentivize
Mhm.
kind of spoofing that country of origin and kind of lowering those tariffs and lowering those standards, because we don't want the beef price at the grocery store to go up. But long term, this is really bad, because
Mhm.
if they can't turn a profit, then they're going to do the same thing that 21 and 22 and 23 did. They're going to liquidate. And if they
Right.
liquidate, then the price the next year will be even higher,
Right.
or it will all be imported. And for a carnivore, that's a food security issue.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
it's a dicey thing. And then the other thing I mentioned at the beginning was the grass fed, grass finish. It's like, a lot of people have creative ways around grass finish. Most people don't know what that means. Finish is the last 180 days of the animal's life. If it's fed only grass, it's really hard to get the animal fat unless the
Mhm.
genetics are really, really optimized. The genetics for a grass finish animal, um, like way, way more expensive.
Right.
But when grain prices are high, they kind of offset that expense of the lineage, um, with not having any input costs. So they don't have to feed them so much
Mhm.
cereal grains when cereal grains are high. When cereal grains are low, it's like, then beef prices can normalize a little bit. The grain fed commodity,
Mhm.
big industrial centers can do pretty well with beef, when everything aligns just right, when all the inputs go down. But when all the inputs go up, then you put strain on the market, and then even the grass-fed, grass-finished sellers have problems too, because normally grass finish is too expensive, and so there's plenty of it, and grain fed is down here. When grain fed starts going up, it starts becoming a problem. So it draws in
Right.
volume. So we're in a really interesting time in the beef industry right now. Being that I make like a shelf stable version of it,
Hmm.
food security is kind of like top of mind for me. Is the reason that I created this is I didn't want to be without beef.
Yeah.
Um, but consumers like in the bulk, in the middle, who aren't carnivore, who aren't even low carb, they start to make decisions like, oh, well, chicken's probably okay. Chicken's good enough. I'll eat some fish. Chicken nuggets, totally, totally good enough for their protein. And so when they start to make decisions like that, it starts to affect the pricing for everybody else.
Right.
So the less volume, the more expensive every cow is going to be.
Right.
And so if you're looking at it like that, you're like, oh man, this is a downward spiral. And it's like, yeah. So this goes back to the expense question again. It's like, well, why would you want to support American made and raised and sourced beef that's regeneratively raised without as few inputs as possible, no antibiotics, no hormones, no mRNA shot, no Boavar, weird fermented feed, just cows on grass like God made it. Why would you want to support that? It's like, well, because if there's not a financial incentive to create that product, then that product will go off the market. And then
Right.
all you have is, the bug burger. And it's like, that's not a good final outcome if you're a carnivore.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, it's supply and demand. I think there's even a level like if everyone is demanding these high standards and putting their money, you vote with your dollar,
Mhm.
then hopefully other companies would follow suit. But like if, we as the consumers, we show the market like what we want.
Yeah.
So every time you buy something, you're voting in accordance with that. Whether or not even if you think, oh, this is like a splurge, this is bad, like you're voting with your dollar every time you buy something. And I think that's like you have to be intentional about what you're buying because not just for yourself, but the message it sends to the market.
Yeah. I mean, I just saw a great comment on like polyester shorts. Like
Mhm.
there was somebody making a merino wool and cotton, a double layered, complex like short. And it
Oh,
was like craft artisan made, like this really bougie thing, but it was unbelievably expensive.
yeah.
And like somebody was commenting, it's like, we like, how could you dare charge this much? We deserve common sense, healthy products at a reasonable rate. And it's like, well, the problem with that is like you can make 50 million polyester shorts with the setup that the world has now. But like
Mhm.
that tiny, tiny little company that's making merino wool and cotton, 100% cotton shorts, you know, that's a plant of like 10 people,
Yeah.
you know, and that entrepreneur had to spend like $10 million on a custom setup that they don't even make anymore to like
Mhm.
make that happen. And it's like, well, how is that person going to like afford the loan on a $10 million piece of equipment that he only runs like 2,000 shorts at a time? Whereas you go
Right.
back to the polyester, they're making like 50 million because they're in
Right.
every Walmart all across the world. It's like the metrics don't work out. It's not profitable. Like
Mhm.
that person will probably have paper thin margins and cut themselves to the bone trying to deliver the most quality possible for the least price because the consumer is price sensitive. It's like,
Yeah.
but there's got to be a combo breaker here. Like if we want quality things, like we have to have compassion for people who want to present that. Otherwise,
Yeah.
there won't be a quality option at all. There just won't be an option.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it comes down to consumerism too. Like you can buy less and buy more quality. And I always think of things like that as well. I think of a funnel, right? So let's say
Yeah.
there's a narrow funnel, the price is small. So at the very bottom of the funnel, where you're looking at people who are making those textiles or people working in the factories, a lot of those companies that people love to shop from with cheap clothes, not only are they toxic, but they're also going to be using sweatshop or potentially slave labor.
Exactly.
And so it's like, okay, yes, I get that you want all these clothes, but hear me out. What if what if people bought fewer things that are not super hyper trendy? And this is food, clothing, whatever, like all
Yeah.
home, all of it. Buy quality over quantity. And when you have a wider funnel at the top and you're going through these quality sources that are small companies made in the USA, ethical, yes, it's going to cost more money, but you're also ensuring the people at the bottom of the funnel are paid fair and equitable wages. Like, okay, I'm caring so much about the price of my
Hmm.
shorts. What about the person who made them?
Yeah.
And I,
Exactly.
I think there's like a very ethical component to it. Like if you are buying super fast fashion items or super just hyper consumerism items from the grocery store, in your home, on your body, whatever, what are you supporting at the bottom of that funnel? That's spooky to me that sometimes I think people don't even want to hear it because it forces them to confront the fact that they're supporting atrocity in the world. But it's just the reality. Like you do, once again, vote with your dollar.
And you're looking at like I don't know, clothes is a good example because it's so illustrative.
Hmm.
But like if you're looking at the stitch count or you're looking at how it's sewn, like they use the cheapest, like fastest kind of like you're doing one shorts a minute. So like
Yeah.
you go, 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 and then you wonder why in a couple months they break or
Yeah.
they fray or they like unravel. It's like all of our things are like that in everything in
Hmm.
our life. And it's like the one place that you should really, really not do that is with your health.
Yes. Quality matters. I mean, quality over quantity. I think that's the ultimate thing. Like, you don't need to buy every item you see in the snack aisle, but grab a carnivore bar. Will you guys ever be in grocery stores or in vending machines?
If we go USDA, then yes.
Mhm.
Right now, it's a lot of overhead. Like,
Yeah.
there's a meat plant that just got put into my home city of Columbia, Missouri. Got put in for $200 million. Created lots and lots of jobs. Got a $7 million tax credit for creating those jobs. Got leniency with the sewer. Got leniency with electric. They basically had like this multi-tiered deal to create jobs in my hometown, but $200 million. So
Wow.
my Kickstarter was 84,000.
Yeah.
The disparity between these things is it's like we're the mighty train that could. We're gonna keep on chugging, but going into a full USDA facility, it's regulated the same way that like a whole live animal
Wow.
slaughterhouse is regulated. It's the same regulation for USDA facility, um, and so it ends up being a huge overkill for
Yeah.
somebody who is just transforming already pre-inspected meat that's certified USDA and just transforming it into a finished product that's ready to eat. It's like right now the jurisdiction we're under is retail exempt, and I feel like that's the healthiest way to do it cost wise to keep costs low. Um, but who knows? It's like
Yeah.
it's a big world out there, and demand for healthy food is only increasing. Lots of
Yeah.
people really like our bar, and they really like the new flavors that we're adding that are more inclusive to animal based communities. And so, if that takes off, then I'm more than happy to be in a vending machine or on a shore itself. I think that could be really fun to have it be so convenient.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, we'll be hoping for just continued growth and that maybe someday, I mean, if I ever walk into Sprouts or something and see Carnivore Bars, that'll be a very exciting day. Last question that I love to ask everyone, especially the experts. What is your current health and wellness goal?
My current health and wellness goal, I'd say, is yeah, I just happen to be expecting my first child. So
Congrats.
yeah, so I think that's where a lot of my focus is on now. I think being present and really being engaged is my goal as a father. I want to have all my health hacking routine down. I want to wake up early, do what I need to do. I want to take care of my body so that I can be there for the longevity of the child's life and and not compromise my health, not
Right.
turn my life into a meat grinder, maintain the health that I've worked so hard for, and then pass that along,
Yeah.
educate that, and pass it forward. That's my goal right now.
That's so beautiful. Oh, congratulations. That is such an exciting season that you're in. That's amazing.
Thanks so much.
Of course. Well, where can people find you? Where can they shop you or connect with you on social media?
It's just thecarnivorebar.com. On Instagram, carnivorebar.com website. We're on TikTok. We're on Twitter, or X. I keep saying Twitter.
I know I do too.
Um, but yeah, we're pretty easy to find. Just cow on a black background. You'll see us all over the place.
Amazing. You guys, I'll make sure to put a link in my show notes for you to shop as well. And you can always use Delaney to save 10% when you shop Carnivore Bars. Make sure to put that in the notes as well. Phillip, thank you so much for joining.
Oh, thanks for having me.